listening to Pop This, the podcast where three women talk about pop culture. Here are your hosts, Lisa Christiansen, Andrea Gin, and Andrea Warner.
All right, so I have a little confession to make and tell you, but also something fun to talk about. So all the years we've done The Holiday, all of those years, which is what now?
Mm-hmm. 9. We did 9.
9, okay. Yeah. I know that you have no space in your life for Cameron Diaz's problem with not being able to cry. Like, you just find that. Well, I also don't cry very often. Like, I just don't. I don't know what it is. It's very infrequent. I just don't. And there I was watching the Grammys. And when Fast Car started, and Tracy Chapman, the camera first of all just started on the hands playing the guitar.
Yep.
And I thought, okay, well, I know Luke Combs had a big hit with this last year. So not surprising it's on the... there it is. It's Tracy Chapman. And there's her beaming face. And there's Luke Combs looking at her like she's a god. Yep. And there she is singing. Anyway, I actually cried. I don't know if any of you felt the same. No,
a lot of people are saying that they cried watching it. And I found that there's been a really interesting conversation on Twitter about like why people cried, because they're like a myriad of different reasons. Because like for some people, Fast Car is like a really meaningful song from their youth. And for some people, they just hadn't seen Tracy Chapman in a long time and were just overwhelmed at seeing her on stage. Or I don't know, like there's just like everybody kind of came at it, like had a different reason as to like why it brought them to tears.
Yeah, I was just sitting watching it by myself, and I was quite. And now you mentioned those reasons, I'm trying to think like what was. I think generally just the song itself. When I hear the very beginning of it, I almost like always have to like just slow down for a minute and let the song, because it's such a beautiful song. And and I don't know, now that you're saying it, you're breaking it down, I don't know what made me cry. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's not like going to be a surprise that I cried, because I cry frequently.
You're a frequent crier, like
I
Flyer.
I am a frequent crier. Yeah, like I can access it. And I think like I also cry for like so many different reasons so often. So like part of what had moved me about that, because I wasn't even watching the Grammys. I was seeing it on Insta afterwards in clips, right? And then you can watch like the full thing after, and that's great. But like part of it was seeing like Tracy Chapman sort of like on stage again, but also just like the relationship that has now like formed between her and Luke Combs, and like seeing that sort of on stage together, and like the obvious reverence that he feels towards her, and rightfully so, and the clear like joy it seems that to bring her to perform that song in this setting when she is notoriously so private. And
exactly.
I think so much about like what it takes for her to decide to like show up in those like highly visible public spaces, and like and how long she's had to do that, and like had to sort of like figure out the moments that are worth it for her and the ones that aren't. And so like it's just, I think it's always so meaningful to see what she chooses to like participate in. And that's part of like what moves me to tears actually about seeing her perform. And obviously the song, of course, but just like the feeling in the room. I also was like really happy to see people like singing along so like ardently, and like Taylor Swift on her feet singing along, and just, I don't know. I'm like the person who cries at a standing ovation, even if I think the show has not deserved it, because the feeling in the room is so full of love.
I think
I'm just like, everyone
that might be part of it.
So much. Yeah.
When
like,
there was that
I don't know,
recognition
swept
that
away.
that there we were watching Tracy Chapman, the crowd swell, like the sound that they made.
Just like
I
that.
think that was part of it too, that like without anyone, like if someone had come up to me and said, do you like Fast Car and Tracy Chapman? I would go, well, yeah, I'm a human being. I mean, like,
Exactly.
yes, for sure. But then to see that like shared in that room.
Yes. When you feel the collective heart swell, it means something. And like, that's also, I don't know, I'm a dork, but that's something about music too. Like there is not necessarily, like there are other songs that maybe could have like activated that room in that space, but like Fast Car is special. Tracy Chapman is special. Like
I was reading W. Kamau Bell has a newsletter called Who's With Me, and he wrote an essay all about it. But he was talking about how, you should check out his newsletter.
Yeah, I will.
It's excellent. It's a weekly newsletter. But he was saying too, like she never like licenses her music to anything.
Yeah.
Like she never, she doesn't perform because she doesn't need to. And like it's just there's something inspiring about seeing someone with such integrity in the music industry who's just like, I only do what I want to do.
And I want to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, in Prada, but that's an aside.
Yeah. Looks great.
And I think you're right about
Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, about Luke Combs too. Like that just I mean, here's a man who was born after the song came out, right? And and it's still an incredibly powerful song in his life. And when he was, and the two of them, like I could watch it a million times, and I have already probably, but just the looks they were sharing with each other, how when she was singing, he was still mouthing the words.
Yeah.
Well, and W. Kamau Bell was writing about how like there was a lot of respect in his performance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like he didn't change the pronouns to like
No,
what
he
he
didn't.
used in his song. He kept them
Yeah.
her original ones. And and he didn't have his guitar with him. Like she was playing the song. And there's like all these little details that he was pointing out that made it like, you understood that it was like he has a lot of respect for Tracy Chapman.
He was also dressed up, and I've seen, pictures of him performing, and he's just got like a fun countryman work shirt on, right? But here he was in this like red velvet suit jacket, which was so charming in and of itself, and it just, gosh, I think it's interesting and it's really interesting to see how that night her version went to number 1 on the iTunes and Apple charts. Mm-hmm. And I think on Spotify, and not so his was last year, but then hers soared back up again this time, and her album.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And I mean, that's sort of interesting too to think about. Like, we talk about all the time, like how the Grammys have like an irrelevance to them, and I think Jay-Z accurately called them out in the moment, and people have been calling them out for years. But they also but the reason that they need to be called out is because they do have such cultural capital and power, and we see that in how they affect charts and how they affect like how entertainers are sort of treated in the culture. And so it's really complicated and weird, I think, and more so now, obviously, I think even to be a musician and an artist, but like the awards stuff, like we're coming up into Oscar season, and we've got lots of conversations around that and lots of complicated feelings around that. And, we've been talking about that since the beginning of the podcast as well. And like, it's like, there's no good answer, probably because of like late stage capitalism, about awards shows and artists and engaging or disengaging, etc. But like, it's I think it's like very, like, we obviously can't say they have like no meaning or relevance when we absolutely see the impact
Absolutely,
right away in things like charts.
There was something really powerful about the broadcast too, bringing Joni Mitchell and Annie Lennox, that we've been suffering through old men performing for like, let's not even count. And so, I mean, that was Joni Mitchell's debut there. So there was something
Wild
about that. Yeah, wild. And I also, just remembering, I just want, like what you said about how they actually are important. When I watched SZA's speech.
Yes.
You could see that to her, this was a game changer. This was, you know what I mean? Like,
I thought it was so funny how she ended it.
I don't look nice
Saying
crying or whatever.
Crier.
Yeah.
But also like Victoria Monet's speech, right? Like there were, I think, there were some pretty powerful moments that like somehow made a case for the Grammys again after like people were really kind of like thinking, oh, maybe like, especially with the former Grammys person having said a bunch of terrible stuff and then having been accused of like really terrible stuff and, them having like a real systemic racism problem internally and with the voting. And like this year, it seemed like the award show itself provided a bit of a counter to that, like a bit of an evolution, which is nice.
I was just going to say one of the funniest things I've heard that I still think about a lot is Cameron Esposito, related to Fast Car, is that she said if she was doing a figure skating routine, she'd do it to Fast Car.
Wow. Why not? I mean,
that would be beautiful.
And she'd just be like sad and skate around the rink.
That would be really beautiful.
Yeah, I think it would be a beautiful program.
I could, perhaps it's a TV show coming out of that. Who knows, right?
If we're talking about like great Tracy Chapman songs, obviously talking about a revolution, important. But I also just love, oh my God, I'm gonna just say the whole line because like I know it, but I know it's not the whole line. Baby, can I hold you tonight? I just like that's one of my favorite love songs in the history of all time, and that also makes me weep. I'm Andrea Warner.
I'm Lisa Christiansen.
I'm Andrea Gin.
And you're listening to Pop This. And we are talking Nyad.
It almost sounds like a thriller, doesn't it? Nyad.
It does.
Will she?
I mean, it kind of is. Yeah.
It's a bit of a thriller. Like I will say.
It is. Yeah. And there are sharks involved.
Yeah, she could have been eaten by a shark.
Yeah.
I thought her face was going to fall off from salt. That really freaked me out, man.
Yeah.
I got to say, that salt face was a lot for me to look at.
Imagine how it felt. But anyway.
I cannot. And just can't. Just can't.
Yeah, I just spent most of this movie, my brain was trying to process like swimming. For how many hours did she swim?
60.
60 hours. Like, I can't even compute that.
No, because...
I can't... Well, like, what can anyone do for 60 hours?
I literally can't even sit on the couch for 60 hours straight because I can't just, like, crap into my sofa and have it washed away into the ocean. Like, I just... Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's lots of, I mean, I was going to say there's, like, just lots of bodily functions I don't really want to think about that much, but... That's all I'll say.
Especially in relation to everything that she has to go through in the ocean. Honestly, so I have a bit of a fear of drowning. That really, this really allowed me to sort of confront that a lot throughout. And I was like, did not realize fully how much I feared it until watching her get slapped in the face with like waves and waves and waves. Like I wasn't even that concerned about the sharks. I was just like, oh, yeah, like she's just gonna fully drown.
Yeah, I didn't worry about. I spent like I think I've mentioned this on the podcast. I spent a good 10 years of my life as a competitive swimmer, and
I forgot that.
Yeah. So the I mean, I do not want to in any way suggest I was on some sort of Olympic track. That's not what was happening. It was just a girl who liked swimming going to the swim club. That was all it was. We were the Semiahmoo Marlins, and we were doing our best. But there was
Do you have
one
a dolphin call? Is that?
Yeah, there was one of my clear memories, and it's very painful to remember, is I did sign up to do a mile swim, 1 mile, front crawl. So, and I guess there were probably, 5 or 6 of us competing in this one heat, and I got lapped. So I was the last one to finish. And when I got out, they all clapped. And I still think about that clapping as just like people, I just finished.
I know they're doing it to be sporting, but I understand why you're just like, please don't draw attention to this. Please.
Yeah. I mean, if I could have, but I knew if I didn't finish that I would also be upset, and I knew my parents would be upset with me and everything. So
if you were to learn anything from this, you might be better at it now if you went back to try training and swimming a mile again.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. I never.
You might have a stronger mental acumen to push your body forward to do it.
There's lots of things that imprint on us. Thinking of Twilight, right? Imprinting.
Yeah, no, of course. As soon as I hear the word imprint, I think
exactly.
Ew.
Yeah.
Ew.
Let me tell you,
on a baby. Ew.
Getting out of a pool after being lapped and people clapping for you is not something you ever forget. Like, it is in me. I can still, if I need to, like, let's say for some reason someone said, can you conjure up the feeling inside your body of feeling humiliated and really sad? Wait.
Aww.
Yes, I can.
You know what? Andrew and I will go down to the pool and watch you swim, and we will not clap. We will take you very seriously.
Go about your business. Just
Yep.
Go get a hot dog. Nobody needs to watch this.
I'll tread water in the
which is my way to say I was just gonna say I do not understand Diana Nyad at all. I just thought I would throw in my own long distance swimming story that is not really applicable to this movie at all.
Well, honestly, I'm glad you said you don't understand her, because I'll be honest, guys. I like the movie okay. The whole time I was just like, this is another one of those stories where all I'm asking myself the entire time is why? Why are you doing this? Why? What's the point? Why is it worth endangering
we got some
the lives
answers.
of 40 other people? 40 people. I just am always going to have a hard time with these kinds of stories where the personal glory of doing the thing is it, as an endurance test, as a just to see if you can. I don't know. I don't get it. And I hope maybe you guys can explain it to me.
Well, I mean, it's just like any other kind of sporting feat. What's the point of climbing Mount Everest or...
But that's what I was thinking the whole time. One of my notes is, what is the point of climbing Mount Everest? It's...
Yeah. If you don't feel it as something it's a quest, right? Yeah. And if you're not interested in that quest, you're not interested. But people just want to be the first to do something, or to do something that's impossible, or other people haven't been able to do. It applies to anything. There's people who because I do a bit of ham radio. Yeah. A lot of the challenges are to go to a desert island and go to a spot and build your own radio and broadcast from some point no one has ever done it before.
It's so interesting to me to just think about that in terms of sort of framing it as that quest piece, and that, and then I automatically think about sort of Columbusing and stuff like that, and I'm just so curious about what drives someone to want to be the first to stake their claim on something. And And there's lots of different ways like that could be interpreted, but I just like, I would love to talk to a psychologist about this. I understand neither of you are a psychologist.
Well,
like,
I mean,
but I would just love to.
I think it's like this idea that your name you would make history or whatever that means, right? Like, and you would do something memorable. And I think it's human nature to feel like you want to do something notable, that you somehow, I don't know, leave your mark on the world.
Yeah, I guess I get that part of it. It's like so interesting, but like to just want to be the first to do something is so, that's the piece that is so curious to me. She didn't want to have an asterisk beside her name because like 2 other people have made that swim, but they did it, I guess, with these cages, and like she wanted it to be cage free.
I was just gonna say though, the film is pretty, like we were saying. I've said to people about watching, it's very tight. It knows what it wants to do. It starts, it's got a middle and an end. It's like really almost screenplay.
Like textbook, yeah.
Textbook, exactly. So when this movie starts, she's turning 60. She's depressed about not challenging herself anymore. And so there she goes, because she'd spent a life competing and being interested in people in sport, and she failed trying this when she was younger. And I mean, I think it's like, yeah, I do not have that feeling, that drive at all. I am extremely satisfied with dying in obscurity. I am so fine with that. Like there's nothing I want to be the first to do. I'm afraid of a lot of things, and I'm okay with that. But I recognize that some people, this drive inside them is, like when you said talk to a psychologist, I mean, there's just some people that are just so unbelievably driven. It is, if you told them like this, just thinking back to, the famous Malcolm Gladwell, that you need 10,000 hours, right, to master something. When I see that, I'm just like, well, that's not for me. But somebody sees that and goes, I'm in, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, this will be something that I'm going to probably keep asking you both, because you both have been sort of competitive athletes in your own forms and in your own sports. And I just never have been. So I feel like it is something I will return to throughout the podcast. I'm so sorry. I'm just trying to understand this piece of it. And I think the movie does we should probably say what the background and the synopsis, et cetera. Because we've already talked about a lot of the film and haven't even said officially.
We've given the spirit of the film.
Sure have, and we love a spirit. AG, do you want to read the background?
Sure. Nyad is a 2023 American biographical sports drama film. Okay, those are the words that I was reaching for before. About swimmer Diana Nyad's multiple attempts in the early 2010s to swim the Straits of Florida, with flashbacks to her early life. It is directed by Elizabeth Chai Vasarhelyi and Jimmy Chin in their feature film directorial debut, and written by Julia Cox, based on Nyad's 2015 memoir, Find a Way. It stars Annette Bening as Nyad, with Jodie Foster and Rhys Ifans in supporting roles. The film received positive reviews from critics, with particular praise for the performances of Bening and Foster. For their performances, Bening and Foster each received a nomination for Best Actress and Best Supporting Actress, respectively, at the 96th Academy Awards, the 81st Golden Globe Awards, and the 30th Screen Actors Guild Awards. And I will say this movie, I think, is elevated because of their performances. Like, they have such great chemistry.
Yes. Yeah.
100%. Yep.
They're such great actors that it's just like, that is what elevates it from just being like another sports movie.
I agree with you, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking that the whole way through. I thought, man, like, I know this is a movie about a woman, wanting to, like you said, go on a quest, but there also was something about being in the hands of 2 competent actors that you just felt like, this is what it can be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. This is what it can be. Lisa, do you want to read the synopsis?
Sure. Nyad is about an athlete creating her own lore. Diana Nyad, as we said, played by Annette Bening, is proud that her last name stems from the Naiads of Greek mythology. My ancestors, the nymphs that swam in the lakes and the rivers and the ocean, Diana trumpets to everyone in earshot. A record-breaking long-distance swimmer, she's got the lung capacity of a real blowhard. Her ever-patient best friend, Bonnie, played by Jodie Foster, spends this exuberant and enervating biopic cutting Diana off mid-crow. Braggadocio takes you far in politics or business. Jocks, however, have to prove it in sweat. And so, at 60, Diana vows to conquer the challenge that bested her at age 28. She'll swim nonstop from Cuba to Florida over 2 days of sharks, storms, stinging jellyfish, and hallucinatory exhaustion. And that wonderful piece of writing there was from Amy Nicholson for the New York Times.
Yeah, I really liked that piece of writing. Great job, Amy. And thanks for reading that, Lisa. I think that is such a good synopsis of the film that we literally can just like dive right in. So both of you saw this before I did, and both of you had seen it independent of each other. And I think we were having dinner together, and you were both like, "Hey, I really like this." And so I'd just love to know, what made it like sing to you.
Well, I mean, I think it's like, it does make a difference if you have ever participated in a competitive sport, because like I feel like you can relate to this idea that, or just be amazed at the fact that like she could not achieve something when she was in her physical prime, and now is going back and is just like the idea that she has the mental, like more sort of mental strength now that she's older, that she can push her body to accomplish something it couldn't when she was 29. Like, that's just incredible. Like, it's not something anybody, like 99.9% of people would consider doing. Because, like, as a, when I think about figure skating, all the time I think, like, oh, if I had just, been tougher or, like, had more mental strength to apply myself or trained harder or did something, like I could have been better. And if I was doing it now, knowing what I knew now, like I think I would have been better, but I'm just not able to do it anymore because, I'm just physically too old. But yeah, so I could kind of like from that perspective, like relate to her quest and just be totally like amazed at what she was attempting to do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and that's also a really good, I mean, I just now something that AG said there was like, she tried when she was 28, but she gave up, right? And now she wasn't going to give up. And that is definitely something that as you get older, you realize, oh, this is just about me, right? As long as I don't give up, I can keep doing this. And for whatever reason, somebody might think that's futile, but I think that's just like her mental capacity changed as she got older, which I think is fascinating. I think for me, what I wanted to watch it, obviously, just because I'd heard good things about it. But I think what really drew me into it, and what I really appreciated more than anything else, is that Diana Nyad does not seem like the easiest character to know. And that's an understatement. And I love the fact that nobody wanted to change that. That I don't like. Obviously, the real Diana Nyad was involved in this production, and she could see how she was being portrayed. And it's not great, right? Like, I mean, she is not the nicest person at all. Not very gracious, not very appreciative. She definitely has an air of you owe me. You're supposed to be helping me. Can't you see this? And I just was like so impressed that the portrayal of this character. I just thought this was so fantastic. And I'm sure this is what it must be like to know her in person. Is just this, wow, you can be really, really awful. And I am so completely mesmerized by you at the same time.
Well, yeah, because like at the end of the movie, they have like clips of the real person. And because like when I was watching it, I was thinking like, wow, like Annette Bening is really creating like a pretty tough character here. But then at the end you realize, oh wow, she's just a really great actor and captured this person's essence. Like
I could not believe how much Jodie Foster looked like the Bonnie too. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But
like it was
but
crazy.
Honestly, Annette Bening too, like both of them really seem to embody these characters. I think it's like, and it's so important to have someone like Bonnie just cutting her off from and saving her from herself over and over again. And like the fact that they're both athletes, but that like Bonnie is a coach and Diana is a solo athlete. You know what I mean? Like, and I think like what I really, I mean, I appreciate that we see how hard a lot of her edges are. The movie doesn't try to soften it at all. But that one of the things I do appreciate is that like, over the course of the 4 attempts that we personally witness, between the ages of like 60 and 63 or whatever, however old she is when it finally happens, the team that assembles around her, and we only get to see a fraction of it because like however much budget this movie had, they did not have the budget to show a crew of 40 different people with several different vessels, like which was the real scenario. But we see like a genuine, like we see her called out for not acknowledging all of the other people that it takes to make this vision happen. Like, yes, it's her body. Yes, it's her mind. And yes, it's like her quest, but we know nothing ever happens in complete and utter solitude. Like people are somewhere, even if they're made to be invisible, around the edges, supporting somebody to be able to like get to their goals. And I really like how clearly the movie sort of like indicates that, and just like, you know, it's not overly sentimental about it.
No.
But it's like making space for that. And I just, and the different things that the filmmakers made space for. Like I thought actually that was one of the most compelling parts, is just seeing how hard Diana is on herself and the other rougher parts of her personality that are absolutely unlikable, but like also seeing how hard she is on herself, like that negative self-talk, like how mean she is to herself when she's sort of beating herself up about things, and like sort of being able to root that into like some family dynamics, and then the long-term sexual abuse by her coach and what her swimming coach did to her and so many other young girls. Like I was actually like, in addition to like her doing this incredible feat, I was just really moved by the amount of space that the filmmakers left in for like telling that story and telling it right to its conclusion, which doesn't mean it's over for Diana when he ends up dying, like when she's much older, but for her to be able to sort of talk about it and talk about again the sexism that she has faced in the sport when like he's still in the Hall of Fame, even after he has been publicly discredited, but that she really has to fight for like her place in any kind of Hall of Fame acknowledgement. Like I don't know. I really appreciated the different ways that the film sort of tells all the aspects of her story, save for maybe the other bleaker accusations that follow the story about whether it's like true or not.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting part of the story to me. Like, I didn't really read into the fact that the swim wasn't ratified and et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know much about that. But it's interesting to me that, like, there's a crew of 40 people that saw her do it. So I'm curious to know, like, what the discrepancy was and why it wasn't ratified.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of pieces that are written about it. I only sort of gave cursory reads to most of them, but like it looks, she didn't declare it officially. So basically, it seems like she's kind of her own worst enemy a lot. So like she doesn't quite play by the rules, and there are very specific rules set out. And but like even more so than the journey itself, like not being ratified, there's like a lot of accusations, and she admits to having like hyperinflated some of her successes, and she makes claims to things that like never actually happened. And this is something that Bonnie says when she like, and I think she says it in the film and then also like after in the outtakes about how the check gets bigger and every time Diana tells a story, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like she naturally, and I think, you know, that's sort of what Amy Nicholson alludes to about like her being the braggadocio and the sort of blowhardness, right? Is just, it's all about her lore. And I think that this film it's so interesting to me because it goes a long way to sort of like adding to the mythology of her, but also trying to make sure that it like acknowledges that there is a myth making happening of her own design.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's fascinating.
Yeah. Well, one of the directors, Jimmy Chin, he is like a mountain climber who.
Yeah.
I was reading one of the stories, like during the making of this film, he attempted but did not succeed to climb Mount Everest. And it's like kind of alongside the story of him trying to capture like not Diana Nyad's quest as well. Like just the idea that he like understands her motivations.
Yeah. He also, him and Elizabeth, they're married. They made the documentary Free Solo. Is that what it's called?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Like the big, like it was a big documentary in 2017.
Yeah.
And so this is their feature film debut together. But they are like these very well-respected documentarians. And it makes so much sense to me that these would be the two people that bring this story to life with like, I think a lot of affection and a lot of respect for the actual story. Like I don't know, there was some like criticism. There's a couple of reviews that sort of like kind of take aim at the filmmakers for it being too like rote and by the book, et cetera, et cetera. But like, I actually think they do something like very cool here, which is they made me, someone who actually hates most sport films, kind of care. For like, no, I mean, was I enthralled the entire time? No. But like I watched it for a full 2 hours and like I had a lot of thoughts about it and I had a lot of like things to say about it. And I don't know. I thought that they did a really great job like putting it all together. And I thought the action shots were extremely fascinating.
And the makeup.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That salt face, man.
Yeah.
It's like haunting my dreams. Sorry.
But yeah, I just also really felt the peril that she was in these swims, like getting stung by jellyfish and, you know, like swimming at night in this freezing water and the amount of pain that she must have been feeling and just like taking a painkiller and swimming through it. Like it just made me kind of try to imagine like what kind of mental strength you must have to be able to do that and not just be like, no thanks, not today.
Well, I mean, I guess like there's a question. I think there's a fine line. Like, is it mental strength or is it just like obsession?
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
For sure. Like, because.
Well, yeah. I mean, we can ask that question about all kinds of things like bodybuilding and, you know, like it's, you know, like the obsession with your body, right? Like, and what it can achieve. I am most thrilled with my body when I get into bed and I just feel so good. Like that's.
Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah. And I've never looked at my body and like stood in the mirror and looked at it and thought, what can I push it to? Like, what could I actually make this thing achieve? I've never thought that. And I think it's just so fascinating for athletes that they have these bodies and they're like, what physical thing can I do with it?
Well, yeah, because there's one point in the movie where, like, early on when she's making her for like return to start attempting again, where they want to pull her, and she's like, no, I can go another 30 hours or something. Like she says some ridiculous number, and it's just like, oh my God, I can't imagine being on the verge of like being, you know, physically unable to do something and then just believing that I could do it for another 30 hours. Like, what is that?
Well, again, this is where I just like, I'm going to keep tossing around these psychological terms, but like there's an element of delusion in some of her, like, especially when she's literally in the water hallucinating and almost dead. Like I don't know if this actually happens in real life, but you know, in the movie, she does like die for 15 seconds and, you know, is revived. And oh God, wait, sorry. Can we also just talk about the mask that she has to wear?
Yeah.
And how terrifying
yes.
that freaking
Yeah.
mask is? Like,
Yes.
like the salt face freaked me out, but the mask was like wild. And then when she gets stung again and like, ugh, like anyway, I mean this part of the revival piece, but like just and then the other guy goes out there to like, I didn't know for a long time whether the medic had survived. And I was like, are we just never going to find out? Like he got stung too. Like how is it worth it for this guy? Like, I don't know. I had so many questions. And obviously the medic survived, it turns out, but like you could say it's conviction, but I think you can also argue it's compulsion. And I don't think either explanation exists without the other. I think it's a bit of a Venn diagram.
Yeah, because at those points where like the navigator was explaining like if they were going in the wrong, you know, just slightly a few degrees and against the tide or the weather wasn't going their way, like she would be moving like backwards and not even moving forwards.
Yes. And just like refusing to like listen to that and acknowledge that was just like, well, this is why your crew quits and then you have to earn them back.
Yeah, I know. There was like, it is one of those really interesting sort of yin yang sort of things, like that kind of crazy devotion to this is what makes it possible, but at the same time makes her absolutely impossible as a person. Like it's almost like they can't go together, but they have to go together.
Yeah. But I don't think we would even be necessarily like I think like just culturally, we wouldn't really be talking about sort of like the hard edges of her personality if she was a guy.
No, you
know what I mean? Like
you're 100%.
We would just be having, we would just be, oh, this is an expectation. And this is like, and this is the other thing that's sort of like getting a glimpse at what she has endured in her career. And like that kind of sexism and misogyny and stuff like that. Like I think it cannot kind of reinforce why her toughness is so critical and like how it is almost like extra, because kind of what she had to do to like make it just in her sport, in her field, and probably also as a broadcaster. Can't say that world is without its sexism, especially in sports broadcasting.
Yeah.
So...
Well, but then when in our little epilogue too, which was, you know, real footage of Diana Nyad, there she was like, yeah, I'm running across America. Oh, okay. All right. Well, I mean, I guess once you feel like you've done this one thing, and I mean, I think, you know, like the discussion around sports movies, right? Like they're so popular, right? And I think, for myself, and maybe this is the wrong spirit, but I always take them as metaphors, you know, like they're about overcoming an obstacle. In a sport, there's like winning the championship or, you know, climbing something or swimming somewhere, but they're always about this, ability to overcome something that you didn't think you'd be able to, something impossible. And I think those are just like, I think we need those stories in our culture. I think we just need them.
Yeah, I think like they are sort of like those extensions of those heroes' journey stories that like, you know, are so beloved and part of the canon. I think like the disconnect for me is that like what I've said is just like I don't know. It's like that time when someone told me that they were like competing in the Tough Mudder competition. And then I found out what like was entailed in the Tough Mudder competition.
What is entailed?
Like you had to like basically like run this like really intense obstacle course that also involved you like climbing over barbed wire and getting electrocuted.
Whoa.
And I was just like,
what?
This is where we're at. Like people aren't conscripted to like having to do army service now. So they're volunteering to run these Tough Mudder competitions to like prove something weird to themselves. I know that's not the same thing here, but like this is just like I just was like, oh my God, like this is why would anybody do this to themselves? And because I'm never going to understand that, and I say that as like someone who has a friend who has run it, I still am never going to understand it because that's a part of my friend that I cannot access. I don't get it. I just do not get it. And there's nothing that she can tell me about how there's nothing, she doesn't have an explanation for it. And you know, that's fine, I guess. But like sports movies are hard sells for me often. But I do enjoy like the metaphors that come along with sports movies. That's where I'm usually sort of caught up in the human aspect of it. So that's, I think, what I like latched onto here. And again, I thought there were just so many other interesting pieces that like Diana Nyad represents and like what her story represents. And then like the other piece of it being sort of like all of the related controversy around her. But also just like, I don't know, I feel like some of the controversy around her like also is explained by sexism and like there's just a lot happening. And I find it extremely interesting to be pulled into this world. I do not remember this person at all ever coming up on my radar. Like I have no memory of like ever hearing about this when it was happening in the 2010s. Neither. Like I just nothing at all. But like I'm glad I watched it.
But yeah, and to me in a way it's kind of like neither the fact that it's not ratified. I don't know how important that is for me as a viewer, because I think like the important part of her story to me is just that like she achieved it. Like it was a personal achievement, right? Like she did it. And and so like, I don't know. I actually don't think it matters to me that much that if it's official or not. It's just about the story of her doing it.
I agree. It's like what we all say in job interviews when they ask what your hobbies are, and you say setting goals and achieving them.
Exactly. Yeah. She did it. That's the story.
That's the story. She said, I want to do this. And then she did it. I think, I think another problem with the sports movie is, for me anyway, is like in every sports movie, there's always the montage where the athlete is starting out at the beginning and they're rusty, or like in a Rocky movie when he first starts running in the morning and he's really winded. And then, of course, at the end of the montage, we've got, Rocky up there at the top of the stairs there. And I think that the only part of the montage I want to be in is at the end. Like just that. The early montage, no, I don't want anything to do with that. The cricks and the cracks and the and the getting ready and but the end, man, that looks good. Very good.
I mean, I like the journey. I'm and I don't really care about the ratification either necessarily.
I agree.
I find like the story around it all quite interesting. And that there's a former marathon swimmer named Daniel Slosberg who has a dedicated website called Nyad factcheck.com to explore her exaggerated claims and like call her out on stuff. Anyway, I don't know what that guy's deal is, but I'm going to assume he needs
I assume
something
you
else
know what. Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to assume he needs to do something else with his time, but I just like yikes on bikes. My God.
Wow.
And I also just like I think the movie's quite beautiful in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. And I also like, I know that it's really lovely to have a story about two queer women who are like best friends who champion each other. Obviously one more than the other, like seeing their friendship and how it's a partnership in like a platonic, meaningful, like this is the most meaningful relationship in their lives is to each other, and like supporting each other and what that means and what it doesn't mean. And I just really liked being privy to their world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an inspiring friendship. Yeah.
I also, though, I will say the one part that where Diana Nyad loses me is when she talks about how she pulls out her trumpet and plays Ravel at 4:30 in the morning every morning to wake up her neighbors, to make sure that they're also getting up at the same time she is. That to me is truly reprehensible behavior.
Monster.
Of the kind of deranged monster who like thinks she's really doing a service for the neighborhood. You know that this is someone who, like, if she knows how to use that, like, neighborhood check-in website or whatever, where you're, like, talking to each other and, like, looking out for, like, the neighborhood, like, she's the subject of some intense conversations.
And none of them good. No.
None of them good. None of them good. Although it looked like a lot of fun when she was talking to those kids. That looked like that was one of my favorite little scenes because those kids were performing their hearts out. And I also wanted to know about where the poop goes. So I just, these are, with my shy colon, I've got a lot of questions. So anyway, does Nyad pop?
Big pops.
I think it does.
For all, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
It pops for me. It's just a quieter pop because
sports.
I don't care. But there's a lot to talk about, and I think it's an interesting movie, and I do think people should see it. So I'll be the quieter, discerning voice in this trio.
I think it's a great celebration of the talents of Jodie Foster and Annette Bening too. Like, it's great to see them in a big movie on film and, being fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. People were saying that they thought Jodie Foster didn't have as much to do, but I thought she was perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was like, you understand that, like, the drama of this film is the, like, physical peril and the, like, hard work that everyone is doing. She doesn't have to be, like, being chased by, like, a murderer to actually have merit. Like, it's okay that this is, like, a somewhat quieter, quote unquote, film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Agreed.
People are so silly.
Oh, they are.
I don't know what to do with them. We like to leave our episodes on something that we recommend as well. Lisa, would you like to go first?
Sure. So I think last week I announced that I was going to bore everyone with my New Yorker subscription, and
here we go.
Here we go.
But this one is on brand with our conversation here. It's a fascinating article called "The Woman Who Spent 500 Days in a Cave." And I didn't really remember this either, but her name is Beatriz Flamani, and she indeed did spend 500 days in a cave in Spain. And it's a fascinating article about what possesses her to want to do this, what this experience looked like, and I highly recommend it. Day one of the New Yorker subscription.
Wait, Andrea Warner wants to know, do they tell you what happens with the poop?
Yeah, I want to know.
In this one, they do. In this, they do. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, so Feces Watch 101.
Yeah, you got the whole, everything about living in a cave for 500 days is covered.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, AG, for having my back. I really thank you for knowing that I wanted to know that up front.
I think they call it waste in this story.
Sure.
Right.
I mean, it's more distinguished
than poop.
To call it waste.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it sounds very cool and very interesting, and I can't wait. AG, what about you?
So I'm going to recommend, this is a doc. It's called The Greatest Night in Pop. It's on Netflix.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And it's about the making of We Are the World.
Oh, my God.
Everybody should watch this because it's amazing. And you got to see, like, all these incredible, iconic singers gathered together in the room, and you just see, like, them all interacting with each other, like Dionne Warwick and, like Stevie Wonder and Bob Dylan. Stevie Wonder and Bob Dylan are, like, jamming at a piano at one point, like, trying to figure out Bob Dylan's part. Like, it's just mind blowing. And I had not really spent much time, thinking about the making of the song ever. And so, it's fascinating. And I highly recommend anyone who's interested in pop music to check it out.
I am fascinated by those kinds of charity tracks that happen. And I just am obsessed with the making of
you have to
those
watch
kinds
it.
of things.
Yeah.
I cannot wait. I'm so excited. That's great. Thank you so much. I finally got to see in theaters Renaissance, a film by Beyonce.
Ooh.
Oh, okay. And?
I love it. It has so much good behind the scenes stuff and so much good material about what went into constructing the tour. And obviously it has that self-mythologizing element as well. But that's who she is as a cultural figure at this point. So that's, that makes sense. And it's so fascinating to see what she is still up against. In the film, she talks about her as a Black woman and how she has to say things and people will try and tell her she's wrong or try and tell her, no, that can't be done. And that she has to still fight to get her word believed and acted on. And then the movie literally shows you it happening to her while she's trying to put this concert together with people who are trying to tell her, no, that kind of lens isn't available. And she's like, well, I did some research and that lens is available. And then the person literally has to backtrack and be like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I mean, I could get it for you. Just to this is Beyonce. Mm-hmm. And she still has to put up with this crap. And anyway, I love it. I would have wanted it, honestly, I would have been happy with it being even way less a concert film and just more of a making of the Renaissance World Tour and what went into that. Because that's the stuff that really
I think
is
so.
Fascinating.
Yeah, too, because Beyonce never gives interviews and you hardly see her talk anywhere. And so it's I don't feel like I know much about her personality at all.
Yeah, I think that this is sort of the most we've seen in a while, and I really appreciated it. And so anyway, I know we're going to talk about it once it's come to streaming because I know we couldn't when it came out in theaters. There was just a lot of stuff and we couldn't get to it all. But I'm just so happy that theaters are still sort of showing one-off screenings because seeing it on the big screen was great. But as soon as it's in streaming and you guys have had a chance to see it, I'm so excited for us to do it for the podcast because it was fantastic.
Excellent.
Yeah. No, I think she's really good at these. I remember Homecoming too, and I remember really loving that as well. And all that behind the scenes about putting that show together. So I think she's really good at this.
Yeah. Oh, and I think she's smart to, I think she's really smart to not do interviews and just control the narrative, as it were. Can't say I blame her at this point in time. So anyways, thank you so much, everyone, for listening. You can hang out with us on social media, on, here. You could rate and review us 5 stars.
We always love 5 stars. And thank you to Andrea Gin, who is our co-host, producer, and, fellow athlete. So it's been good to have you here.
Yeah, fellow athlete.
Yeah.
I leave that distinction to the two of you.
Yes.
I am excellent at treading water, and that is all I can bring to the table.
That's all you need.
That's fine.
All right. Bye, everyone.
We need a coach.
I think I could be an okay coach.
Yay!
I do think I could be an okay coach. I think I could. I just probably I'd really have to figure out how to be mean and motivational because I don't think that's a tough line to walk.
Yeah, I felt like if we just wanted to quit, you'd be like, sure.
Well, I think it would depend on I can get really invested and competitive. So that if I needed to get invested and you guys were like, look, this is so important to us. We want to do it. And you have to coach us and you can't let us quit. Then I would 100% never let you quit. And I would be a pain. Like, I would be such a pain to both of you. But yeah, if you were just like, this is really chill, and I'm not really, I'd be like, all right. I mean, I can cheer you on, but.
Good to know.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. That's settled. So look for us, 2025, swimming competition.
Pool. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll be there.
It'll be great. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.